Good afternoon, everyone, and it's great to speak with you all today. My name is Beth Flavell, and I'm presenting the results of management effectiveness evaluations that we've completed for 3 marine protected areas. This work has been completed in partnership between the OCPP and the Ministry of Environment in the Maldives. So, next slide. There we go. So a bit of background. The Ocean Country Partnership Programme is a UK government-led programme delivered under the Blue Planet Fund. It's led by DEFRA, so that's the Department of Environment in the UK, and delivered by 3 scientific bodies. So JNCC, that's a Joint Nature Conservation Committee for whom I work, CFAS, which is a Centre for Environment, Fisheries and Aquaculture Science, and the MMO, the Marine Management Organisation. It's a multi-year programme working across 3 key themes, and the marine biodiversity theme, focusing on marine protected areas, is the area that this work sits within. So during the first year of the project, our main focus has been on protected area management effectiveness evaluations, which is also known as PAME. So once a marine protected area has been designated, it's important to understand whether the management actions are working and whether they're achieving what they set out to do. So the results of a PAME evaluation can help this, allowing managers to document achievements and to identify and set new priorities. So there are a number of different elements of the PAME assessment, as you can see here on the slide, and you work through these step by step. So looking at the context, so that's their background, understanding threats and values within the site, looking at the planning, so that's the design features of the protected area. The section looking at inputs considers the management within the site. Output looks at the results of those management actions and how the MPA managers and stakeholders are achieving their aims. And then finally, the outcomes looks at how the management actions, the extent to which the threats are being managed. So during the first year of the work, we completed PAME assessments for 3 different types of protected area in the Maldives. So they included Hanafaru Bay, which I'm sure many of us are aware about, designated under the Maldivian Environment Protection and Preservation Act and has management in place. Angsana Velivaru, which is a resort house reef that is afforded protection under the tourism boundary regulations, and the site has a potential to become an OECM, which is an other effective area-based conservation measure in the future. And then we also looked at Kudahuvadu, which is a grouper aggregation site protected for fisheries measures under the Fisheries Act. So to undertake these evaluations, we used something called the MET, which is the Management Effectiveness Tracking Tool. And it's one of the most well-known and commonly used methods of undertaking these PAME evaluations. It's been used to assess management effectiveness in over 2,500 protected areas across 120 countries. So it's well established. And we use the MET4 approach, which is the latest version of the tool. So you can see a screenshot from the MET on the slide here. It's a scorecard approach. So it's a spreadsheet. It's a questionnaire of 38 questions. It guides you through the process, allows you to select the relevant responses, provide a justification, and then to list the supporting evidence, which is really important because that then allows you to refer back to understand the decision making that was made in those in the evaluation. Ideally, PAME assessments are completed by MPA managers themselves, but due to resource constraints, this wasn't possible. So instead, the OCPP team led the assessments, but sought input from the Ministry of Environment and other key contacts at every stage of the process. So the assessments were also undertaken during the pandemic, so that obviously limited opportunities for in-country travel, at least initially. So virtual engagement was prioritised where possible. Discussions with the Maldives government started even before December 2021 on this process. In-depth literature reviews were completed to understand key stakeholders and the data that was available publicly. But then we really sought to start to fill those gaps. So we undertook online stakeholder surveys. We held virtual meetings with ministries and MPA managers. And using the data, the assessments were completed by staff from the UK who have experience in MPA management and in PAIM evaluations. So we did that initial draft and then held workshops to present draft results to key contacts, and really undertook an iterative process, gathering data, refining the evaluations, and then seeking to gain additional understanding. This was then all followed by validation workshops and meetings with stakeholders that were held face-to-face in the Maldives during May 2022, and has led to us being able to complete the evaluations, and we have written a full report setting out all the process and outcomes that's in the process of being finalised. And we are also working to complete a one-page summary for each of the MPAs that can be shared in English and Divahi with the stakeholders that engaged, so they can see the sort of follow-on from the discussions that we had. So there's a lot of, the results are very detailed, but I will try to give just a flavour of those today. Starting off with Hanafaru Bay. The PAIM assessment showed overall that Hanafaru Bay is well managed and action is being taken to protect the site from the primary risks. Overall, Hanafaru scored nearly 55% out of the 100% in the MET4, and planning and outcomes scored particularly well. A few years ago, a self-assessment was completed for Hanafaru Bay, which scored 42%, which is interesting to consider, but I would note that there are a number of caveats really in comparing between the two, just because of the processes that were undertaken to complete them. Key successes in Hanafaru Bay was the implementation of the management plan, and the site is in force. It has a dedicated team of rangers, and research and anecdotal information suggests that there is a potential positive impact on populations of manta ray and whale sharks in the area. Gaps for the site include the lack of a specific monitoring and research plan linked to the management plan. There's some fantastic research taking place in the area. I see in the audience, I think members, representatives from Manta Trust. There's great research going on, but it's trying to have the strategic linking through the management plan side of things. And as we had the workshop, we had some fantastic feedback from stakeholders, providing a wide range of suggestions to help improve the management of the site. So things like the creation of, or the re-establishment of the Hanafaru Bay website, improving financial transparency, and considering the development of a smart management plan against the measurable objectives against which Hanafaru Bay can be assessed could be really useful. Moving on to Angsana Velivaru, which is managed by the resort site manager and members of the Marine Lab. Angsana scored 49% overall, and the evaluation highlighted a number of successes, including the availability of resources and an active monitoring programme. However, gaps identified the lack of a formal management plan with clearly outlined objectives, confusion over the site boundary, and limited engagement with the local community, which leads on to the recommendations that could be considered to improve management. Greater communication between the resort and the local community would be hugely beneficial to raise awareness about the site and to help support compliance with the regulations. Finally, Kudu Huvadu is one of 5 grouper aggregation protected sites in the Maldives, designated under the Fisheries Act and managed under the Maldives Fisheries Grouper Management Regulation. The site was first designated in 2013, but the new management regulation was only introduced last year, and that's what we based the MET4 on. So, as we expected when assessing a new site or a site with sort of new management in this way, the overall score was quite low because the management is still at the planning and input stage and is yet to deliver tangible outputs. So as the site progresses and systems are put in place, you would expect each of the 5 management areas that are shown in the spider diagram on the right to grow outwards. So the successes include the fact that the site is legally established and provides a good foundation to protect the site as a grouper aggregation area. But the gaps were really around the management of the site and limited enforcement and monitoring. The local community knowledge of the site was very limited, so it provides opportunities there, recommendations to really improve that local understanding, building awareness, and also understanding more about the status of grouper populations within the site would be useful as well. So although the 3 sites evaluated are all quite different in their management structure, how long they've been established, the availability of their resources, the MET4s highlighted fairly similar successes and gaps across the sites. They're all legally protected, they scored high on the expertise of staff, etc. And the reflection was that the PAIM assessment that we process that we took was quite time consuming, particularly as it was undertaken externally. But the key, PAIM assessments don't always have to be so detailed. The key element of it was the stakeholder engagement, which is really critical for ensuring that the results are as representative as possible to help evaluate to help validate the evaluations. And just to finish, despite the differences in the designation types, we observed that the recommendations to improve management were quite similar across the 3 MPAs. So this list here is by no means exhausted, but it could be considered as a useful starting point to help exploring opportunities to improve marine protected area management effectiveness more widely in the future. So that included the development of smart management plans. So by that we mean specific, measurable, attainable, relevant and time-based that could be used as indicators for the progress towards the achievement of the MPA's objectives. The development of research and monitoring plans to help identify priority research areas for a marine protected area and ensure that the data is fed back into the site's management. Raising awareness about the importance and benefits of MPAs can help improve the engagement for local communities and therefore improve compliance. Improving stakeholder engagement in the management process, and that could be through the establishment of working groups linking into local atoll or island councils, really to help spread information more widely and to improve that sense of ownership. And finally, looking at improving compliance. And that could be through elements such as new technology. It's really interesting hearing about the drones talk earlier. There's lots of opportunities there that could be explored. So although some of these recommendations are quite large, when applying them individually, the creation of national approaches could be helpful to more easily and consistently consider this at a national level. So thank you very much for listening. As I say, the full PAIM report is in the process of being prepared for publication and will go onto the JNCC website.